This is the Horse Radio Network.
You're listening to The Stall and Stable Show. Ideas for happy horsekeeping.
Donkeys are domestic equines derived from the African wild ass, Equus africanus. They've been used as a working animal for at least 5,000 years. And with more than 40 million donkeys in the world today, most of them used as hardworking animals in underdeveloped countries, there's a tremendous need to offer them protection in sanctuaries, through legislation, and education. My guest today is Maxine Carter of the Donkey Sanctuary, headquartered in Devon, England. Maxine shares with us the plight of the donkey, how her sanctuary can help, and why it's important for horse owners to pay closer attention to these incredibly smart and willing equines. So listen in. This is episode 88 of the Stall and Stable Show, brought to you by Lucas Equine Equipment, makers of premium quality stall components and accessories. Whether you're looking for standard stall doors or fully customized stall fronts and windows for your barn, Lucas Equine is the company you can trust for quality, reliability, and style. Learn more about what they have to offer at www.lucasequine.com. Welcome back, listeners. Today's Wednesday, December 22nd, 2021. I'm your host, Helena Harris. I came across the Donkey Sanctuary website while trolling the internet on one of my ADHD deep dives. What I found there fascinated and impressed me. After reading through their site, I just had to know more about what the sanctuary does and why the plight of donkeys around the globe was worth learning about. My guest today, Maxine Carter, has been working at the Donkey Sanctuary in the UK for more than 30 years. Suffice it to say that she knows a lot about this subject. I'm so appreciative that she took the time out of her very busy schedule to enlighten us. Her passion for what she does is infectious, and I think you'll agree. If you're tired of rotting broken fences, it's time to talk to Tangent. If you want perimeter fencing that's safe and durable with a classic style, it's time to talk to Tangent. If you want to spend more time with your horses and less time worrying about your farm, it's time to talk to Tangent Materials, makers of premium HDPE lumber that looks just like wood, but without the worry. To learn more, go to stallandstable.com/fencing. Hi, Maxine, and welcome to the Stall and Stable Show. I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, thanks for having us all the way from England. We're in Devon in the UK, and I'm farm manager of the Donkey Sanctuary in Sidmouth.
How did you get involved with donkeys? Were you a horse person first, or were you just kind of struck by their awesomeness and had to work with them in some way? Tell us that story.
Well, there's a bit of a background history there. So I've been here for donkey's years, literally. So I've been here for 31 years. So a very long time. And I think like all of us, we probably once upon a time when we were very little children used to ride a donkey on the beach. People still do, and I used to. But I actually am with an equine background, horse racing, my own horses at home. And I very much lived and worked next to where the Donkey Sanctuary was founded. So we'll go through the history of the Donkey Sanctuary, I'm sure, but I used to go and feed the 2 original donkeys where it all began. So they are way back in my history. I love them with a passion, but my first passion, as a lot of your listeners will know, is horses. Donkeys are different. They are just as amazing as horses, but Dr. Svensson rang me up one day and said, did I want a job? Well, working in a racing yard and falling off horses generally was, it's quite one of those things you do. You get a few injuries. And I thought, working with a little donkey, that would be great. Little did I know, 31 years later, I'd still be here and still be as passionate about them as ever and still own 5 horses at home. I have the best of both worlds.
You have to be motivated to make your time work for all of those animals. You have to be motivated to get up in the morning and do all of the things that you have to do. What is it, or what was it back then that, you took this job and you started working there and you thought, I really like these creatures. I really like donkeys. What is it about them that captured your heart?
think is they are magical. There is something magical about them. And way back then, I mean, times have changed and things have moved on. We've gone from what we were 50 staff back then that worked across the world. Dr. Svensson had a small projects going, and we did a bit of everything. So yeah, I might have been a groom on the floor, but I might have then gone off the lorry. I might have been in the post room, posting a few envelopes to people, raising a bit of money, doing a bit of everything. And I think what hit me first was going into a barn full of donkeys instead of one stable with a horse in, and going, wow, and looking at creatures that had been badly treated. And back then, what should we say? There were a lot more rescue cases than there are today. And it was heartbreaking to see them standing in a corner, shivering in a corner with long feet. We used to watch them come off the lorry, and just through care and, no neglect, it was so sad. And to watch that animal grow with just time, with patience, with food, with love, it just breaks your heart to see what they went through and then what we can give back. And Dr. Svensson was always there with the lorry, waiting for the donkeys to come off. We might have needed to give them a bit of helping hand, but we were a very, very smaller charity back then with a lot less staff. And we weren't as big as, well, we didn't have that message then. So it counted on us, the few grooms that were on the shop floor, to be as passionate as we can and as caring as we can. I mean, back then they might have come in with a cow, a sheep, a pig. They didn't know where they were coming to. They just came off a lorry and in they were with a barn full of donkeys. We had donkeys come in with emaciated coats. It was just so sad. And I think as a horse owner, where we look after those horses, we put rugs on them, they're always our priority. To see little donkeys coming in where they were no one's priority was heartbreaking. And that's what got me.
I'm right there with you. I'm trying not to get all choked up. The good news is that a woman named Elizabeth Svensson decided to do something about this. Tell us about Dr. Svensson. She's a doctor?
Yeah. She got a doctorate, an honorary doctorate for all her work she did with the medicine and with the veterinary profession and the training she did, which I'm sure we'll touch on a bit later. She was just an inspiration. She still is an inspiration to us. She had a passion. It started where she sold, what should we say, a nappy dryer. So back in the day, we had the toweling nappies, and they invented a dryer.
Wait a minute, what's a toweling nappy?
Well, should we go back probably 40, 50 years, when we used to have a cloth nappy on a baby?
Okay, yeah.
That you put with a pin, not the Pampers or diapers, that we have today. Okay. So those. So her and her husband had a hotel in Ottery St Mary, and they devised this machine, which made some money. And she had a little bit of land, not even quite an acre, with a little stable outside the hotel. And she went to the local market near Exeter, which is not far away from us here in Sidmouth, and bought herself a donkey. And she bought Naughty Face and Angelina. Well, she bought two, and then two had babies. So yeah, Naughty Face and Angelina were her first two donkeys, and they came from Exeter Market. And she realised her passion was for donkeys and how much she absolutely loved them. So she joined the Donkey Breed Society. And that's like a riding club to us, or a horse club. This was for donkey lovers, and it still goes to today. And she just started to help and get into work and talk to people and look at donkeys in markets, and again look at kind of the cruelty in the areas where they weren't being looked after and they were hidden in a corner or shut in a field. And she looked to do some advocacy work way back then. She was then left a legacy of 205 donkeys.
That's a lot of donkeys. So that's what you have on the farm today?
Oh, no. My farm, which is in Sidmouth, we can take 250 donkeys.
How many farms are there?
There are 8 farms here in the UK. We have 2 in Ireland. And of course, we have holding bases and areas in Spain, Cyprus, all across Europe. But in our care today, we have 2,737 donkeys today, alive and kicking and well, that we look after across all of those farms. And also we've got some mules as well. So mules and hinnies. So that's the cross between a donkey and a pony. We've got a lot of donkeys in our care still today. And we're still bringing donkeys in. So her legacy that she left with us is still going well.
And what are some of the most common reasons that donkeys arrive at your sanctuary? And then tell us about the strategies or the programs that you have in place so that they can transition from your sanctuary to a more comfortable, permanent home.
Yep. So what happens is the donkeys come in. In some cases, they are rescue cases. Some cases, it's welfare cases. And they're relinquished into our care. And it could be that it's a private home that can no longer care for them and give them the care they need. So they sign them over to us. We work with other organisations that, shall we say, that might take in a donkey that's neglected. And we work with those organisations to provide care for them. They might be on a livery basis, a holding basis, and we look after them until there's a court case. And then they're relinquished into our care.
What kind of court cases? This is
this is cruelty. This is cruelty. So this year alone, we rescued 72 donkeys here in the UK. A majority of those are in foal. I've got 11 donkeys here on the farm. They've had them 2 years, shall we say. And we've just had the case gone to court and they've been signed over to us. And the owner has been charged with 10 years of never keeping animals again. So you can just imagine what state those animals came to us in.
Yeah.
So with the care that we're able to provide, and like I said at the beginning, they don't always like humans. We can't always get near them. We take it for granted when we put a halter on our horses and we walk out into the field and we give them a pat. A lot of these animals, you can't do that.
Are the majority of these cases, or how much is it neglect? Because cruelty can be intentional cruelty, it can be reckless, it can simply be neglect or willful ignorance, as I sometimes call it. Are the cruelty cases typically out of neglect?
Yeah, pretty much out of neglect. I think we can look at the welfare cases, should we say, that might be an owner that's fallen on bad times, but then they ask for help. So we don't call those as cruelty cases. What we look at as cruelty cases are people that shouldn't have those animals in their care. They never trim their feet. They don't feed them. Although they've got feed there in the field ready to give them, they just can't be bothered. And these animals are there to fend for themselves. We'll discuss in a minute, I'm sure, the difference between donkeys and horses, but donkeys aren't like horses. They can't be left into the elements. They can't be left without shelter. And many of these animals are, so they don't have hair on their back. They've lost their coats. They're riddled in lice. Their feet aren't like horses, so they're turned up. They're like Persian slippers. They just grow and grow and grow. So these animals can't walk. They can't get to food. They can't get to water. They might live on rubbish dumps. So we go in, and it's not just us. It's many other governing bodies that we work with, and we support each other to rescue these animals.
Here in the United States, and I mean throughout the world, we understand how horses end up in bad situations through neglect. What is the difference? Let's talk about then the difference between donkeys and horses. What I've heard, the horses who we say in air quotes are in your pocket, they make good pets and good companions. They tend to have a better outcome when they can no longer serve as riding partners or in some other work capacity, right? If they're pleasant to be around, then they tend to have a softer landing in retirement. But from what I hear about donkeys, they can be smarter, maybe a bit more challenging, perhaps at times not so cuddly and pet-like. What are the primary differences in their care and then in their disposition in general?
Okay, I don't like to use the word cuddly, but I am going to in this instance because we can cuddle all our donkeys. And that counts for all the donkeys that have come from whatever background. With trust and time, they become the most wonderful pets. And it doesn't matter what background they've had. And I can tell you, I have seen some very, very sorry states. I had to get one donkey in. I was in the lorry up at the top of the UK in the snow. We had to stop at 6 stations on the way back to get veterinary care because this was a cruelty case. Came in, met Dr. S one evening, very late at night, fed, looked after this little donkey. This little donkey is the cuddliest, friendly little donkey that you ever want to see, and he's now rehomed into a private home with his friend. So there isn't a donkey that we don't have in our care that we cannot turn around. And we do. So, yeah, they do come in and they don't trust a human. They're not quite like horses, as in a horse. I feel sometimes that once they've had a bad experience, and because they're a lot bigger, they're a lot more challenging for us if they've got behavioural problems. But our donkeys, there's nothing that we can't do, and there's not one we can't turn around. And we do. We honestly do. And I think they learn from other donkeys. So if you've got that lovely little compassion donkey in the corner that wants all your attention, then little Eeyore or little Jenny that's there in the corner that goes, I'm terrified. But if he can go up and say hello to her, so can I. And you watch these little steps coming along and the little bit of trust coming and the nose going out just to be touched. They truly are absolutely divine. And you could train them for anything. Dr. Svensson started therapy centres. So we've also got 8 therapy centres where we do therapy for adults, children, and we work with difficult donkeys in those centres that teach each other. So they teach the human and the human teaches the donkey to gain trust. It really is something that I can't really describe on air, but it is.
You're getting your point across.
It's just so passionate. And I am very equine. I am a horsey girl, but donkeys are something else.
What are their needs like physically? My listeners know that there are the 5 freedoms that we talk about for animals, fresh water and adequate food and forage, socialization, the ability to connect with other equines. How are the donkeys different than horses? What makes them different?
In that respect, they're not. That respect, they're not. They have their companion. I don't know whether we ever look at horses like we do in donkeys, but donkeys can bond for life. So once they've got a friend, they can remain bonded forever. They're pretty much like us humans too. The odd one might go off and get divorced and find another one in the other corner of the barn. But pretty much they stay together. They grieve terribly if they lose a partner, if they don't see their partner as passed. And then they can die of that. They can literally go in, they get a disease called hypolipemia, and it's the absorption of the fat in their blood system, and they'll just switch off and they can die. So that's how sad it is. That's very different. Herd-wise, yeah, they are the same. On this farm, the largest group we've got is 54. On one of our 8-line farms, we've got 120 in a herd group.
Wow.
The smallest group I've got is 2. So I kind of monitor donkeys within their groups, within their needs. Some can cope in a bigger group, some need a smaller group. And the differences between horses and donkeys is something, if I said to you, go and do a hay net of straw for your horses, you'd go, I know, it would get colic. Donkeys thrive on straw. It's their main diet. It's what they eat. But if you think back to where they originate from, they're a desert animal. So camels store water in their humps on their backs. Donkeys store water underneath their bellies. So they eat lots of fibre and digest it. So if they were to be in the desert or up a mountain, they can survive 48 hours without water, and they store the water underneath. So that's very different. That's not something a horse can do. Also, a donkey is a single track animal, where a horse is a 2-track. So think how horses work, and a donkey will cross their feet over and work in a single track. So back, when the army have used mules and donkeys for carrying supplies up mountains, it's because they can walk up a single track.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a bit something different that I hope you've learned today.
I did. I've learned like 4 things already. So what part of the globe would you say is not good for donkeys?
The UK. Because we're wet, aren't we? We're wet, we're cold. And what do? We've got all these donkeys. But again, if you imagined yourself with a pair of socks on and a pair of welly boots, I'm not sure what you guys call boots over there, but the welly boots and a pair of socks. So get your socks soaking wet in water and put your feet in your wellies. Walk around those in for just 20 minutes and see how your feet go. That's what happens to donkeys' feet. They can't cope with the wet. They can't cope with all. And that's why we look at quite a few cruelty cases, because that's how people are keeping them in. And they just can't dry out. They just get wet.
Wet, muddy conditions.
Yeah. So, that's how we kind of, sort of say, if you want to know what it's like for a donkey, then put a pair of nice socks on, get wet and put them in your wellies and see how you feel.
Does good trimming just keep their hooves healthy, or do they need protection like horses do with shoes or boots?
No, we do put the odd shoe on a donkey if it's got a foot problem. I've driven donkeys in the past, so they used to have little shoes on. But pretty much if they're dry, nice concrete yards, nice dry bedding, regularly picked out, then that's it. That's the key if you've got donkeys in the UK.
Okay. And you mentioned something about driving. What kinds of jobs are donkeys good at? I mean, I'm going to guess that they're versatile, but in your opinion, what do you think would be a good fit for a donkey for some work?
Donkeys are a working animal. It's what they do. Here at the sanctuary, they're sanctuary animals. They've come in to be looked after and to be in a sanctuary. But I would advocate anyone that's got a nice, young, fit donkey. They're good at ploughing. They will plough a field. Not too deep a furrow, I hasten to add, but they're quite good at that. They will carry panniers. So if you've got an orchard and you want to get some logs or you want to get some apples, they will do that. We, in the past, with our donkeys, have used them for education. So we've taken them to schools to educate children how to look after them. We do training courses with them anyway. Some donkeys don't want to be used, but I've met a lot of donkeys that are in private homes that are not donkey sanctuary animals, and they thrive on doing work. And it could just be going for a walk with the dog through the woods. Yeah. But they like to be kept busy.
I don't blame them. I'm the same way. I think I have a lot.
I think all us horsey people are.
Yeah. So are they patient? I mean, do they have a higher threshold for standing still and working with humans? I mean, for me, well, in my experience, horses, we always have to keep one eye out for how reactive they're going to be to their environment. Their fight or flight response is very, very strong. How does the donkey's disposition compare to that of the horse? I would say
exactly the same. I think it's like anything, isn't it? You get to know your horse, you get to know your donkey, you know what reaction they're going to get. With any training we've done in the past, it's the prep work. It's the work that you do beforehand. It's no different than breaking in a horse. You do the right prep. By the time you get on, it's a much easier solution. That's the same with the donkeys. Clear understanding, as long as they understand what you want, whether it's going in the lorry, going for a walk, going to a school, standing still for children, you get the right donkey for the right job and the right disposition. And I think here at the charity, you know, you've got donkeys that have got more of a flight mechanism because that's what they've needed in their past. So they'll be a lot more alert and a lot more eager to sort of run away from a different sound or a different noise. But we've got many a donkey that have come in from doing lots of things. We've got one mule that was used for the military of defence, training the troops.
Wow.
So she came in because she'd done that work. It's surprising what donkeys we do get in. But as I say, we are a charity now. So when they come in, they're lucky that they can enjoy a quieter life.
It's like donkey spa, which...
Yes, it is, I'm afraid. Yeah, and you've got heat lamps when it's cold, nice, warm, deep, cozy beds and banks. So it's very lovely.
Yeah, as it's 35 degrees here in Rhode Island in the U.S. right now.
Oh, God.
Thinking about heat lamps. So let's talk about there were three words that really, really struck me when I was going through your website. And it's the Donkey Sanctuary's values. Yeah. Compassion, collaboration, and creativity. And I had done an episode with a veterinarian here in the United States. She wrote a book, Dr. Stacy Boswell. She wrote a book about helping horses in need. It's a guidebook for taking these neglect and cruelty cases and transitioning the horses to a more comfortable life. And she pointed out that compassion is a cornerstone to her work and to any work that involves rescues. Let's dive deeper into each of these: compassion, collaboration, and creativity. So let's start with compassion.
So, yeah, I mean, that's what we've all got in abundance. And you need that here, and you need that with the work we do. And I think you need that with any department where you work, because everywhere that we work, the end result is the donkeys that are in our care. So that's what we kind of looked at. And we look at people who rely on our donkeys for their livelihoods. So it could be in Mexico, it could be in India, it could be in the brick kilns. It could be where people literally, if they didn't have their donkey, they couldn't earn a living. So the compassion to care for them and the compassion to care for their animals and make sure that we're doing the best for those, because it's not all about the donkeys that are here in the UK. It's about the donkeys globally that we've got, that our partners work with, we work with, and the compassion that we provide for them, really. I think for us, as a human being as well, it's being able to cope with our own mental and emotional well-being. Because if we haven't got that right in ourselves, then we can't give that to our donkeys. They literally feel what we feel. So if we're not having a good day today and we go in the barn and ask for something and they're like, well, you're stressed, you're not really with me. Well, I'm not going to take any notice of you today. And I think that goes for everyone. I think we have to allow time and we have to allow patience. And it doesn't matter where in the world we go for that. I think that's tenfold. That's what we have to provide.
Agreed. I think that having some measure of compassion for the people or the circumstances that the donkey has come from or that the rescue animal has come from, because in order to provide the best support for the animal, we kind of have to understand the story, how they got there, what created it. And a lot of times we don't get the full story. We get just little bits and pieces or no information at all. But if we can tap into our own compassion and put ourselves in the shoes of the people or the situation where the donkey came from, I think that puts us in a better position to support them and restore them to health.
In the past, I've luckily been a field officer, so I've been able to travel out and about and see people with their private donkeys. And their stance always used to be, oh, if you're coming, you're going to take my donkey away. Well, no, I'm not going to take it away. I want to help you. And I want to help you as an individual to care for your donkey in the best way you can. And it's very lovely when you build a rapport with another person to actually give the result of what they wanted in the first place. Yes. It's a massive thing, but we don't need to bring every single donkey we go and visit into the donkey sanctuary, but we can help a person.
So that compassion gives way to collaboration, right?
Yes.
Both on the individual level, but then also on a much larger scale. Because the donkey sanctuary is, with 2,000 plus animals, you have a global impact.
We do.
On donkey welfare. I know that you guys work with several NGOs, non-governmental organizations, for those of you who aren't familiar with the term. Collaboration, education, and then this global presence that you have. What's at the top of your priority list in that arena?
Well, I think we all know the donkeys are. We've actually been working with donkeys for 50 years, so a long time. And with the donkeys worldwide, we're reaching over 40 million donkeys. So we might look at the 2,700 we've got in our care in the UK, but there's 40 million out there that we're actually really helping. So that's a bigger picture. We've just managed to go to COP 26 to work there with our advocacy team.
Where is that?
So that was in Scotland. So all the world leaders went there to look at the climate change and what's happening to the world. So we had someone there talking on behalf of us and what we do, with the United Nations, and we're part of it. So collaboration is absolutely huge, but it's getting the message out there about donkeys across the world, working with other organizations. We do work with governments as well, but other non-government bodies. But we've all got to stand together because that's the only way we're going to get this to work for all our equines.
Are donkeys the most popular work animal in non-developed nations?
Yeah.
So they are at the very top of the priority list.
The very, very top, because if you look at if they were not there, what would people use?
Yeah. Horses are
because you don't really see horses, do you? When you see a lot of the ads on TV and see Africa, you don't see them walking around on horses. It's all donkeys. And I think, I don't quote me. Like I said, Dr. Svensson at the time, I always said to her, why can I not go? I'm really desperate to go. She said, Maxine, you'd be arrested if you went. You wouldn't be able to cope. I think it would break my heart. And that's the difficult thing. Donkeys are cheap. They're easy to come by. However, it's not such a story at the moment with the skin trade that donkeys are disappearing.
So let's go there. The skin trade. Tell us about this skin trade. Tell us about the bigger picture.
Well, I've been talking passionately about how much I love donkeys. So I'm going to actually touch on a sad subject now that is quite hard to talk about. It's quite hard to see pictures of it, but we do at the sanctuary. And I think we have to see the other side, the flip coin of these poor donkeys that don't survive. The reason the skin trade is used for Chinese traditional medicine, and it's called ijiao. It's made from boiled and stewed donkey skins. It was originally used to enrich the blood. Ijiao is centuries old, but in the last 2 decades, the ijiao manufacturers have upgraded their marketing, and the need for donkeys and the demand is just terrible. The amount of donkeys that they're having to get, kill, steal to get this product. It's a horrific trade, and we've seen evidence of the devastation that it causes around the world. So just as one small thing, it could be a small village in Mexico, and they've got 5 donkeys that can go and get water, that can get them food to save the women carrying the water. We've all seen what these small little villages are like. And then poachers go at night and steal them. They inject them with a lethal injection. So not even the other animals, once they're skinned, want to eat them. So it's not even doing 2 purposes of animals and people that are left. And then these people can't even afford to buy another donkey. So the women and children then have to go out to work. They can't earn the money that they did. They can't get the education that they did. It is just so sad. But we first heard about it in 2015. And since then, we have been campaigning internationally to put a halt to it. We haven't. But what we have done is we've worked with 19 countries that we've managed to ban the export and slaughter of donkeys. So that's quite a few. And then in 2017, if anyone really wants to know a lot more about it, on our website, the Donkey Sanctuary website, we did publish a Charities Under the Skin report. So you can read a lot more. It is quite horrific, but it's worth a read if you want to learn a bit more about it.
I'll put a link up to this on in the show notes for listeners.
Once you kind of have a look through, you can put some links on and see what's sort of going on. And I think if you learn a bit about it, make more people aware, because I think the more people we make aware, the less people will buy it.
Like anything, we've got to stop it at the source, which is the demand. And
it is.
The demand requires education.
Does.
And our voices.
It does, but it's getting the right voice. I think we all know it depends on which voice can get that message. I think that's across anywhere that we go. But like you said, we are working with other organisations. Our advocacy team are working so hard that it's their job.
I'm going to play devil's advocate because I do think that the voice is important. So I want to reach the people who might be saying or thinking, well, we slaughter animals for all sorts of human purposes, for food, for clothing, for other products. Why is taking the skins of donkeys any different than our other the carnivoristic aspects of our life? I know I didn't say that very well, but why is it any different?
That is a hard question. It's not an easy one to answer, but it's very different for the quantities that they need. We can't reproduce donkeys as quick as maybe we can with cattle or sheep. If we're going to look at it like that and be a bit truthful.
To me, when you regulate the use of animals, especially for consumption, we can sort of, I don't want to say guarantee, but we can sort of create a more humane process.
Exactly. We have welfare standards, don't we?
We do. But when you start to go into lesser developed countries, they don't have the infrastructure to provide humane processes for this. They don't have the education. And some of them are in survival mode, so they don't have the motivation to be humane. I was not aware that this was such a global... yes, I was aware. I think I just tucked it down someplace where I didn't want to think about it. So do you see this in your global presence and your programs in other countries, lesser developed countries? Or is it just a problem with China?
No, not at all. They've rung us and said, well, Donkey Sanctuary Farm. Well, how many thousands have you got? How many can we have?
Oh, God.
So we've been asked that question. We were asked that question, back in 2015? Why can't we have your donkeys? So this is what it is. It doesn't matter. You think in Australia, think how many donkeys are roaming free. I think what I find hard is the ethnic countries that have donkeys stolen by poachers. And and it's their form of transport. That would be like us, in equivalent, I would say, of, okay, we're going to take all your cars away from you. So how are you going to get to work? How are you going to get your shopping? How are you going to get your food? Because that's what we're doing. We're taking their means of transport, their means of livelihood away. And these people aren't like us. They're not in affluent countries where money is easy. Their donkey is their life. And I think that's how I look at it, different from us with sheep or cows or eating meat. We're eating it because we can. These people are having their donkeys killed. They're not eating their donkeys. You can't eat their donkeys. They're killed under the most disgusting circumstances, and their bodies are left to rot.
I think it's essential to the human race, to the evolution of humanity, to stop it at the point of origin, because
we must remember they're using it as a beauty product. They're not using it as a source of survival. They're not using it because they need to eat meat. They haven't got food. This is a beauty product.
And the means of getting it is barbaric.
It's absolutely disgusting. But I know our teams and other governing bodies are looking at how we can make this product in a lab. So we can provide this product lab made, rather than taking it from an actual animal. So we're working with that at the moment as well. So that's what we're looking at as well.
That's brilliant, because you can't really scale donkeys as a raw material, but you can scale something that's made in a lab, can't you?
Yeah.
So if we're going to hit these people where it hurts, we're going to hit them in their pocketbook and saying, it's going to become way too expensive for you to source donkeys from some little family in Mexico that needs them. Yeah. Guess what? For pennies on the dollar, get the synthetic version and all your beauty products can be on the shelves in no time. So creativity, and that was the third part of the values. Thinking outside the box, compassion, collaboration, and then creativity. We all want to say, we have to stop this. It's barbaric. It has to stop. But the ideas, this is something that I'm particularly interested in, especially from the public, especially from people who are moved by the plight of the donkey. What are your ideas? From not shopping on Amazon because they're promoting these products, or writing to your legislator, whatever it might be. What can we do? People are listening to this podcast, walking around their farm. They go, oh, this sucks. I wish there was something I could do. What are you going to tell them?
Be a supporter of the Donkey Sanctuary. That's one thing. We've got the advocacy team. We've got the teams working with all the other governing bodies, which we need. But actually, we do need support from our supporters out there. So you could easily become a supporter of the Donkey Sanctuary. You could adopt a donkey. £3 a month. We've got webcams on site where you can look at your donkeys either sleeping at night but I think that's it. I think if we can get our supporters to support the work that we do, if you ever come to the UK and you want a job, we've got jobs too. But no, I think be a supporter of our work. Go on our website, look at the things we do, look at the links that you can learn from. Look at the education that we can provide. We've got lots of leaflets. Look at what we do and see what you can do as an individual, and it doesn't matter where you are, to support us. How can we educate people to look after their animals better? We don't all want to take them into care, but we want to help everybody look after the donkeys and mules the best we can.
And it goes right back to what you said earlier in our conversation. When you show up, it's not to take the donkeys away, but it's to help you provide a better environment for them. And then ultimately they're going to pay you back because they're comfortable, right? And they're happy.
And that's across the world. That's not just here in Devon. That can be anywhere. My husband also runs a farm for the Donkey Sanctuary. He was very fortunate to go to Kenya and work in our little sanctuary in Lamu, where it's a very small island, and they look after donkeys. And Dr. Svensson used to be called the medicine lady, and they'd see her coming in all her greenery, and off she'd go with a member of team from the UK, and they'd be there ready to get all their donkeys and show her every time she visited how well they were looked after, how healthy they were, and how well they could work. They were so proud. They were so proud of their donkeys and so proud to show the medicine lady exactly what they could do.
Give our listeners, tell us where they can find you online.
Okay, so we are the donkeysanctuary.org.uk. On the website, we are the first ones that will come up. There are lots of links there with what we do. There's adoption donkeys, and any help we can provide with donkeys, just ask.
Super. And listeners, I will be sure to post all these relevant links in this episode's show notes at Stall and Stable. In fact, I'm going to put a banner ad throughout the site for the Donkey Sanctuary, so you don't even have to look for this episode. If you just go to stallandstable.com, we'll put a banner ad right there to take you to donkeysanctuary.org.uk. Thank you very much for your time and for enlightening me and my listeners, and I wish you all the best.
You too. Take care.
For more information about the Donkey Sanctuary, you can go to stallandstable.com and look for the Donkey Sanctuary banner. Just click on that and it'll take you right over to their website. Thank you, listeners, for following along once again. And thanks to everyone who's offered their kind words and support as we welcomed our newest off-track thoroughbred mare to Who Hollow. We adopted Clarabelle through Horse and Hound Rescue in Oklahoma. I'll be sharing all kinds of content related to Clarabelle and my adventures with her, including our clicker training, positive reinforcement, how the herd is getting along, what Brody and Susie think, and all sorts of fun stuff. If you'd like to be a part of that journey, go to stallandstable.com and click on the Friends link. Your support in helping keep this podcast and that private content going is greatly appreciated. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas if you celebrate and a happy holiday season. We're going to take the week off, but we'll be back shortly after the new year. And that's going to be a wrap for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it.